What's going on, everyone? My name is Jasmine. On today's episode of the Slam Project, we're going to be talking about 5 unsolved MMIW cases from South Dakota. And like a lot of my other videos, these women and girls were more than likely murdered by somebody that they knew. Don't forget to check out my other videos, and if you want to see more videos on missing and murdered Indigenous people, click that subscribe button and the notification bell. Now let's get right into it. Victoria Eagleman was born on March 14, 1973, to her mother, June Left Hand. She was known as Vicky to her family and friends. It is said that Victoria was a quiet, sweet, and shy person who loved her family and children. She was a domestic violence survivor and was recently divorced with 5 kids. She moved back to the Lower Brule Reservation with her kids and began living with her mother and her stepfather until she got on her feet again. Her mother's name is June, and her husband was employed as a sergeant with the BIA police on the reservation, and he was a dedicated and hard worker. After moving back to the res, Victoria began a new relationship with a man named Bernard, who went by the nickname Sonny. He also abused Victoria and often stayed with her at her parents' home. June last saw Victoria on Friday, July 28, 2006. She said she was leaving to go swimming with her boyfriend Sonny, his sister Erin, her boyfriend, and one of Victoria's sisters. They ended up at a spot on the Missouri River that was known as a party spot, and they were drinking. Multiple people saw Victoria at the river that day, and her sister would later tell their mom that she was arguing with Sonny that day. Later that night, when her stepfather returned from work, he went to bed right away because he worked late. When he woke up early the next day to get ready for work again, he noticed that only Sonny had made it home, and he was asleep in Victoria's bed. June waited all day for Victoria, but she never returned home, so she began to call and ask around about her. Victoria's sister arrived home while June was waiting, and this is when she told her Victoria was arguing with Sonny the previous day at the river. June found out that Sonny's sister Erin was also there and was worried because she also had a habit of beating on Victoria. But the sister said Erin was not fighting Victoria that day and said that they dropped Victoria and Sonny off somewhere. In an interview June did with the True Crime Chronicles podcast, it was never specified where or if they were dropped off together. Sonny was asked where Victoria was, and he said he didn't know and said he last saw her when he was dropped off. Even though her husband was a BIA officer, the police on the reservation were not very helpful. When her mom went to report her missing, they told her she was probably just out partying. She was finally able to get them to accept a missing persons report on August 3rd. Later that same month, Victoria's children found her prescription eyeglasses smashed on the road about a block away. It appeared as if they had been run over. Also found near her glasses was one of her rings. It was never stated if this ring held any significance, like being a wedding ring or given to her by her boyfriend. But with her belongings on the street like this, it is possible she could have been attacked in the street. One thought I had about the ring is that maybe Victoria intentionally dropped it on the ground when she realized she was in trouble. These items were turned over to the police, and this was the turning point that signaled foul play for them. This was frustrating for Victoria's family because they had been trying to tell them this all along. Also during this time, June began hearing all kinds of rumors on what happened to Victoria, and she relayed all of this to the criminal investigator, but this did not change the pace of the investigation. The family was frustrated over lack of help and started their own searches. About 100 people showed up to help search the area around the Lower Brule community. They were on foot, horseback, ATVs, and even had boats in the water. One thing noticed by a lot of people was that Sonny did not help search for his girlfriend. He was interviewed by the local news, and he talked about her in the past tense. Nothing was found on this first day, and the search would continue the next day. On August 23, 2006, her nude remains were found stuffed in a culvert along Medicine Creek, just off a scenic byway in Lower Brule. Heavy rains had blanketed the area recently, and it is believed that this pushed her body out of the culvert. She was found with her arms outstretched, as if she were on a cross, and her hair was flowing in the water behind her. Her stepfather was with the search crew who found her, and he was so upset he had to leave the area. The autopsy showed signs of trauma to her face and head, and the cause of death was most likely a result of blunt force trauma. It also showed that she had been sexually assaulted. It has never been revealed if foreign DNA was found on her, but being in the runoff water of the culvert and decomposition from the summer heat may have destroyed any usable DNA. Sonny was considered a suspect at the time, but since he was seen sleeping at Victoria's house by her stepfather, it is said that other people also must be considered suspects as well, even though he could have done something before returning to her home and going to sleep. He has denied doing anything to her. Her ex-husband was also cleared of any wrongdoing because he was in Japan at the time she was murdered. To make matters worse, her case file was not handled properly by the authorities. A reporter with Care 11 named Blue Goose reported that her crime scene photos and police file were found on a sidewalk in front of the police station in Lower Brule. The person who found it took it back to the police station. This is very disturbing because nobody could explain how they got there, and the police never said if anything was missing from the file. Does the uncared case file represent corruption within the police force, or just an unfortunate accident? Victoria was only 32 years old when she was taken from her family. There is a combined total of a $15,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for her murder. You can contact the FBI's Pierre office at 605-224-1331 with any information. Amy Marie Thompson was born on July 9, 1978, to parents Vincent Thompson Sr. and Cheryl Johnson Shields. She was born and raised in Fort Thompson, which is on the Crow Creek Reservation. She was also a loving mother to 5 children. Not much is publicly known about her case, but she was dating a man from the Lower Brule Reservation, which neighbors the Crow Creek Reservation. Amy eventually moved to the Lower Brule Reservation and began working at the community center and the Golden Buffalo Casino. She would leave her home sometime in November 2021 and would never return. Her niece made a TikTok video that said the FBI has her official missing date listed as November 21st, 2021. Amy's family and friends were very concerned for her safety when she did not return, and they began to search everywhere they could think of. On December 20th, 2021, the people who loved Amy had their lives changed forever. Her body was discovered on the Lower Brule Reservation. The location is said to be near her boyfriend's mother's house and in a buffalo pasture. She was found near a barbed wire fence and under a mattress. The condition of her body would not allow her to be buried in her tribal traditional way, which was an open casket earth burial. Instead, the family had to bury her in a closed casket. This has hurt her family very much, and what hurts them more is that her friends are not speaking up about what they know. Amy's niece said that the official cause of death was ruled as an overdose, and the investigation really went nowhere after this piece of information was obtained. When famous people connected to Hollywood or the music industry overdose on street drugs, there is often a full-blown investigation to find their drug dealer and bring charges against them. In the cases of Mac Miller and Michael K. Williams, multiple people were charged and sentenced to harsh sentences for selling them substances that were laced. Common, ordinary people do not get this luxury, and there was no investigation like this in Amy's case. The person or persons who decided to throw her out like a piece of trash have faced no consequences, and the person who supplied the illegal substances is free to continue dealing death. Amy's uncle Wendell told Dakota News Now that he believes he knows who is responsible for her death and disposal, and at least 2 men were involved. Although the news segment did not say who he thought it was, one of them was more than likely her boyfriend at the time. Amy's niece has stated that his family was on the tribal council at the time, and this may have been the reason why the investigation into her case stopped. Amy's life ended too soon at the young age of 43, and her family continues to fight for justice. Please contact your local FBI office with any information. You can also submit an online tip through their website. Renee Black Dog was a 7-year-old girl living on the Lower Brule Reservation with her mother and stepfather named Felix Quilt. At about 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday, March 27, 1956, Renee's parents left the house to walk to a neighbor's house to attend a wake. They left her asleep in her room with a 5-year-old child. It was not clearly stated if this was her sibling. But when the parents returned about an hour later, Renee was gone and only the 5-year-old remained asleep in their bed. The whole community was concerned about Renee's disappearance, and people began to search for her. At about 5:30 p.m. on March 27th, about 17 hours after she was last seen by her parents, Renee's body was found about 600 feet from her home. A lady by the name of Mrs. Goodface found her in the Missouri River. She was only partially submerged because her legs were the only part of her body in the water. An autopsy was done on March 28th and concluded that Renee had been sexually violated and most likely died from a severe head bruise or neck injury. The investigation was briefly interrupted because of an ongoing blizzard that closed the roads leading to the reservation, but it resumed on March 29th, but nothing notable was discovered. In April 1956, the Lower Brule Tribal Council approved a $1,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for Renee's murder. In 2024, this amount would be about $11,400. In April 1957, there was trouble at the Quilt home again. Newspaper articles say that a 14-year-old boy ran away from the Pierre Indian School and went to the Quilt home to stay with his sister. When an Indian agent went to the home to retrieve him, he stabbed him in the chest with a 3-inch knife. He was eventually arrested by the U.S. Marshals. There were no further updates in the newspaper archive regarding Renee's case, and it was never stated if anyone else was in the home the night Renee was murdered. Did some evil person see her parents at the wake and decide to do this unspeakable act? We may never know. Warlene Gayton was born on January 2, 1964 in Eagle Butte, South Dakota to her parents Warren and Cleo Gayton. She also had 2 brothers and a sister. The family moved from the Cheyenne River Reservation when Warlene was 12 and began living in Rapid City. Warlene was 17 years old when her family last saw her on Wednesday, May 13, 1981. She was on her way to a party at a local motel. When she did not come home and no one could locate her, her family thought it could be possible she ran away to California. I am not sure why they said this, but maybe she talked about it before, or there were people from California at the motel party. In an article posted by the Lead Daily Call, 2 hikers were in a ravine south of Rapid City on Sunday, June 14, 1981, when they found her badly decomposed remains. This location is stated to be between Highway 16 and Skyline Drive. An autopsy was conducted the next day and determined that she had been dead for about 30 days. They were not able to tell if she died at the scene or was just dumped there. They were also unable to determine a cause of death. The article also said that foul play was suspected at the time her body was found. However, a July 23, 1981 article by the Rapid City Journal would contradict this and say that police do not suspect foul play. Even if no cause of death could be determined, it does not explain how this young girl ended up in a remote ravine outside of the city. Warlene's family struggled with her death. 2 years after her murder on May 17, 1983, they posted a memorial ad in the newspaper. It said that they loved her and missed her. Please contact the Rapid City Police Department with any information about her case. Mona Lisa Two Eagle was a 21-year-old mother of 2 boys and lived on the Rosebud Reservation. She came from a large family and was one of 14 children. On February 3, 1979, her 12-year-old brother Phil witnessed her leave the family home and get into a red and white pickup truck with 2 unknown men. She did not return home, and her family knew that something was terribly wrong, and they were concerned because of the blizzard-like conditions at the time. They began searching for her, and her dad and one of her brothers found her 2 weeks later frozen solid in a field. There were bruises around her neck and on her body, and investigators think she was sexually assaulted. In 2018, Phil told Teen Vogue magazine that an eyewitness said that they saw Mona in town being carried into a house by two men. Another witness also reported that they saw a truck stuck on the highway near where Mona was found on the night she was last seen. These two men have never been identified, and her case has remained unsolved after 45 years. If these men are still alive, they would probably be in their 70s. The Pine Ridge Reservation and the Rosebud Reservation are closely connected. It could be possible that these men were from the Pine Ridge Reservation. Please contact your local FBI office or the BIA Missing and Murdered Unit with any information. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you knew any of these victims, please share any memories of them, and I will see you in my next video.